Hey, what is up guys, it's Thunderstruck115 and today we are going to be doing my wish list for Black Ops Cold War Zombies, or Black Ops 5 Zombies, or whatever the hell COD 2020 is going to be called. Now, initially I wasn't planning on doing this since by the time I had the idea I figured that the COD 2020 reveal would be right around the corner, but Treyarch and Activision seem to be taking their sweet ass time revealing this new COD game, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it just for the hell of it. So these are going to be things I would like to see in Black Ops 5 Zombies, or Black Ops Cold War Zombies, and I'm going to be referencing previous games a lot, mainly to address their salient issues as well as what they did right, so that way we can have it implemented in the next game. Anyways, the first thing that I'd like to see in Cold War Zombies is to have both a complex and a simple map on disc. That way people who don't buy the DLC get two different experiences at launch. One that's like a super complex map, something like Mob of the Dead, Origins, or basically any map from Black Ops 3. And then you have a simple map closer to something from Black Ops 1 or 2, or about the complexity of Classified, I'd say. The reason for this is that there are generally two types of people in the zombies community when it comes to preference. There's the ones that prefer the simple survival maps, and there's the one that prefers the more complicated quest-oriented maps. Generally, the zombies veterans prefer the quest-oriented maps, whereas people that are new might prefer the simpler maps because they're easier to understand and you don't have to look up a billion guides how to do everything. I think this would be better at expanding the zombies community than the on-disc maps of Black Ops 3 and arguably even Black Ops 4. World at War, you only had Nocturne and Toten, it's dead simple, easy to understand. But at that point, zombies wasn't really big either. In Black Ops 1, you had two on-disc maps. Now, both of them were really simple, but one was Kino der Toten, which was fairly easy, and then there was also 5, which was more challenging. And then there's also Dead Ops Arcade in there as well, but that's like really different from zombies, but still nice to have. But that way, the experienced players have 5, whereas new players can get introduced with Kino der Toten. In Black Ops 2, the only on-disc map was Transit, however, you could also play certain areas of the map on its own, like Bus Depot, Farm, and Town. And those maps were very simple, whereas Transit was big and more complex. So you had both styles of zombies. Someone newer to zombies could play something like Town, Farm, or Bus Depot to get acquainted with the mechanics, whereas a more experienced player could play Transit. Or they could play Town, because let's face it, Transit wasn't really all that good, but that's beside the point. Problems begin to arise in Black Ops 3 though, when the only on-disc map was Shadows of Evil, and that is a really over-the-top complex map. Now, it might seem simpler to a zombies veteran who's into that type of stuff, but that is not a map that you would want to introduce a new player to, because there's so much stuff that they have to wrap their head around, all while also figuring out the basic mechanics of zombies. I mean, yeah, the Giant was also available on launch day, but you had to buy the Season's Pass in order to get it, and someone new to zombies probably won't buy the DLC until they're satisfied that the base game is good and worth buying the DLC for. Black Ops 4 was slightly better than Black Ops 3, simply because it did include the tutorial mode, but still the 3 maps were still fairly complicated. I'd say 9 was probably better to introduce someone to zombies on than Voyage of Despair or Blood of the Dead is, but it's not perfect either, especially with all the amounts of special zombies and shit. I feel like if Classified was a non-disc map, that would have been the perfect one to introduce someone to zombies on, since that's fairly simple to understand, but also has all the new mechanics as well. Of course, though, if you want Classified, you have to buy the Black Ops Pass. So I think in Black Ops 5, or Black Ops Cold War, if they have one map on disc that's more like Shadows of Evil, Der Eisendrache, Gorod, Grovey Revelations, that kind of complex map, in addition to a simpler map, somewhere around like Classified or Ascension or Town, I think that would help to expand the zombies community, since there will be a simpler map for someone to get themselves acquainted with the mechanics of zombies and learn how to strategize, and then they can move on to the more complex maps. And that's a cool way to do it with just 2 maps. If there's 3 maps, you could do one that's really complicated, one that's really simple, then one that's sort of middle of the road. Of course, since Treyarch got pushed onto COD 2020 out of nowhere, it's highly likely we won't get as many maps on day one as we did in Black Ops 4 because there just won't be enough time to develop them. So I'd rather them make quality maps than try to rush out the same amount as they did in Black Ops 4, only they're worse because of time constraints. But that's just me thinking out loud. Alright, number 2, the perks. So, I'm pretty sure y'all are expecting me to say, revert back to the original perk system, the Black Ops 4 perk system sucks. Well, guess what, I'm actually not gonna say that. Most people in the zombies community prefers the old perk system since that's familiar, but however, if you really step back, take off those nostalgia goggles and look at each perk system for what it is, I think there are some good benefits to the Black Ops 4 perk system. I'd say each perk system has their pros and cons that puts them roughly next to each other. If I had to give my preference, I'd actually say I slightly prefer the Black Ops 4 system, but there are pros and cons to each. Like for example with the Black Ops 4 perk system. Pro, you have the freedom to choose whatever perk loadout you want, and you don't have to be limited by what's available on the map. Con, once you load into a map, you can't change out what your perk loadout is in the middle of the game if you decide one of your perks is bad and you want to switch it out. Pro, the new perk system allows Treyarch to easily add in perks in the middle of a game's life cycle as well as to add them to previous maps. Con, maps are harder to balance as you have to account for every perk instead of just accounting for the perks that are put on the map. So, while I do like the Black Ops 4 perk system, I could easily see Treyarch switching back to the old perk system as well, but whichever one they go for, I'll support it, but I think there are some improvements that could be made no matter what system you choose. Something I would like to see implemented no matter how they choose to go about the perks is to allow the player to swap out what perks they are using in-game. So, if they decide to use the old perk system, you could swap out your perk loadouts, but the only way to do so was to go down and lose all your perks, or to otherwise lose it by some other means, such as the monkeys on Ascension. But I think if they implemented a system like Infinite Warfare Zombies has, where you can go up to the machine of a perk you already have to refund it so you can swap out for another perk, I think that would improve the game a lot. Meanwhile, in Black Ops 4's perk system, I'd say that once you assign a perk to a machine, I think there should be an option to maybe like once you have the perk to return to the machine, and then holding X on it would bring up a menu that allows you to swap it out to a different perk and pay to replace the one that's currently in that slot. That's just me. You could also make it so like you could permanently change the perk on that machine to something else by like paying a fee or something. However, this way it would allow for more experimentation with perk loadouts. Another thing with the perk system is I think Black Ops 4's idea of removing crutch perks from the perk loadouts and putting them in other systems was a good idea. My only issue with the way Black Ops 4 did it is its implementation. I think with Black Ops 4's system, Speed Cola was handled perfectly, and I think Solo Quick Revive was also handled pretty well. However, with Jug and Double Tap, it does leave a bit to be desired. With Jug, instead, you're just given 200 health right off the bat so you can survive 4 hits, which removes the challenge from the early rounds. See, the early rounds were hectic because a single mistake, you could easily be double swiped, or in Black Ops 3's case, triple swiped and go down easily, which puts some tension that even though the zombies are pretty weak, so are you, and the act of getting Jug was an important milestone for upgrading your health, which would make you less prone to easy downs. Black Ops 4 didn't have that, but the problem with the way it's implemented in games prior to Black Ops 4 was the fact that it takes up one of your perk slots, and therefore you're pretty much always going to be running it, which discourages experimentation with perk loadouts for your playstyle. The other crutch perks also had this problem. I think the best way to do it is to have Juggernog or an equivalent upgrade, but it's separate from the perk system. So maybe there's like a new machine where instead of being a perk, it would function pretty much identically to how Jug functions, but it doesn't take up a perk slot. That way, there's an obvious health upgrade milestone in the game, but it's separate from your perk, so it doesn't take up a slot. Meanwhile, in Black Ops 4, double tap was handled by putting it in the pack-a-punch system. You have to repack your gun 4 times after already pack-a-punching it to get it to max damage. This kinda discourages the player from switching their gun, since doing so would cost them an extra 15,000 points. I think a better way to implement this is have an upgrade on the maps, similar to the silver bullets on Dead of the Night, where maybe like stopping power rounds or something, which do double the damage and also increase the fire rate or something. So you buy it once for your gun, it costs maybe like 3,000 points, and then you have it on that gun. I think that would do what Black Ops 4 was trying to do, but it would do it better, if that makes any sense. And again, I think the way Speed Cola and Solo Quick Revive are handled are fine, so if they want to do that, they can just keep it the way that it is. Though one other change to the perk system I would like to ask for Treyarch is to increase the perk limit to maybe 5 or 6. Over the years, a lot of perks have been added to zombies, but so far you've only been able to get 4 perks outside of means like perk bottles or gobblegums. But I think maybe increasing the perk limit to account for this would be beneficial. Alright, with that out of the way, number 3 on my wish list is to bring back more game modes, such as Black Ops 2 and 4 had. Mainly the ones I want back are Grief Mode from Black Ops 2 and Rush Mode from Black Ops 4, because those were both a lot of fun. I'd say Rush Mode is fine how it is, though. Grief Mode definitely could be expanded to include new ways to help your team or hurt the enemy team, because pretty much you could only do like basic level trolling. However, I remember like this one Black Ops 3 custom map where it was like a free-for-all version of Grief, but you could spend money to maybe slow down other players or take a gun, take a perk or something. I think that something like that could be pretty cool and really hectic and a blast to play with other people. Turn mode from Black Ops 2 was also fun, though again, I'm not exactly jumping out of my seat to see it come back either, so I'm not really going to be disappointed if it doesn't return. Gauntlet mode from Black Ops 4 was a cool concept, though I think the fact that all the challenges on a specific map would be the same every single time you play it kinda hurt the mode's replayability overall. But I think if they brought back a version of Gauntlet where the challenges are somewhat randomized, I think people would enjoy that more than what's in Black Ops 4. Number 4, more original maps. So, in Black Ops 4, in my review series, I said that the reimagined maps weren't bad because they play differently, but I'm not saying that I completely disagree with some of the complaints. I'm fine with there being a reimagining or remake or two, as long as it's not the main source of content. In Black Ops 4, nearly half the maps were remakes. While they play differently and I enjoyed them, I would like to see some more original maps as well. If by the end of the standard DLC season there's 8 maps, I'd be fine with 1 or maybe 2 reimaginings or remakes. And then obviously if they'd want to do Zombies Chronicles 2 after all that to add remasters, I'd be fine with that as well. So while I kinda gave Treyarch a pass for the remakes in Black Ops 4, for Cold War they really need to up their game. Number 5, bring back the old point system. This is one of the changes in Black Ops 4 which quite frankly was really unnecessary, as it removed some strategy that was present in Black Ops 3 and previous games. Using a lower damaging weapon in the early rounds might make it harder to survive, but if you're a skilled player, you can get more points faster than using a high damaging weapon, which would allow you to progress through the map faster, whereas a newer player might need a higher damaging weapon to survive, but as a result, they'd be punished with slower progression due to getting less points. In Black Ops 4, however, it doesn't matter what damage you use with the weapon, you're always going to get a total of 90 points from a zombie, or 120 if it's a headshot kill, or 150 if it's a melee kill. But yeah, I think the older point system is better, and I don't understand why they changed it. Number 6, if Create a Class from Black Ops 4 does return, please don't lock parts of the core loadouts behind a progression system. Shit like Gobblegums, Elixirs, and weapon kits I'm fine with, but I shouldn't have to be barred from buying a certain perk because I haven't played the game enough. Now, granted, I play enough zombies that I've ranked up in Black Ops 4, so that's not a problem for me, but for newcomers, I can understandably be upset with that. I'd say classic gumballs are fine since they only really supplement your loadout, or classic elixirs in Black Ops 4's case. And then weapon kits, again, they help with the weapons, but you're not like barred from using a certain weapon either, so I'm fine with that. But stuff like perks and weapons and grenades, they shouldn't be barred because of a level. Oh, and speaking of Black Ops 4's creative class system, number 7, don't give the player a specialist weapon at the beginning of the game. Now, I'm fine with being able to pick a specialist weapon, but it shouldn't be given on round 1. It should be more like Black Ops 3, where you have to complete a quest in order to earn the weapon. Of course, if they do that, it's more likely that they're just going to have map-specific specialist weapons anyways, but I'm fine with being able to pick my own special weapon as long as I don't spawn with it and it's like something else I gotta either buy or unlock otherwise through gameplay. I shouldn't spawn with it because that just makes it too overpowered in the early rounds. Number 8, please keep gobblegum / elixirs / whatever the hell is replacing them balanced and not pay to win. In Black Ops 3, if you shelled out like $1,000 on Liquid Divinium, like someone like say NoahJ456, you're going to have a much easier time getting to higher rounds or completing Easter eggs than someone who doesn't have that money and only really has classic elixirs with maybe the occasional mega, because yeah, you can still earn them, but you won't have as many. Because let me put it this way, someone who can use a power vacuum almost every round is going to have a blatant advantage over someone that can only use a power vacuum once or twice before they're out of it again. So yeah, Black Ops 3 was horribly unbalanced for this and made it very pay to win. Black Ops 4 was a much more balanced in this regard, and I'm happy that Treyarch did it, though there were a few questionably overpowered elixirs in the mega section. I wouldn't say that most of them were blatantly better than the classic ones. So yeah, keep up with that trend, Treyarch, that you had in Black Ops 4, and I think they will do fine in this regard. Number 9, please don't grave rob the Aether story. I know we all loved it, but it's time to put it to rest. Just respect the ending. And while we're on the subject of story, please just stick with one story for the next game. I feel like that Black Ops 4 story got choked out because there were 2 of them, the Chaos story and the Aether story, and since they had to share one DLC season, each of them only got 4 maps, meaning the Chaos story only had 4 maps to do world building and provided us with a story to get us hooked. But since it had so few maps, the story kind of felt rushed, and it just left us with the biggest cliffhanger ending since Halo 2. And with the Aether story, only 4 maps for the Aether story made it so it didn't have enough time to flow naturally and progress to its natural conclusion. Once again, it feels rushed. If they focus on one story in Black Ops Cold War, that will do wonders for it. Anyways, I am really hoping they continue the Chaos story because I actually really like it. But unfortunately, most of the people in the zombies community seem to fucking hate it for some reason. I'm willing to bet that reason is it's not the Aether story. But whatever they do, just stick to one story. Hopefully it's the Chaos. Might be something new. It might be a reboot of Aether. I'd rather it not be a reboot of Aether. I'd rather that story go to rest. But if they stick to one, it'll be much better. And finally, number 10, please add crossplay. I was glad to see it was in Modern Warfare, and since this is going to come after Modern Warfare, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be crossplay in Cold War as well, but just in case there isn't, I just want to reiterate that I would really like this to be the case. That way, number 1, it would keep this game active for much longer, and number 2, it would increase the player base as a whole, making matchmaking much easier to find matches. Now, I'm not sure if they'll do cross-generation multiplayer, since I am 99% sure this is going to come out on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, but I'm not sure if they would be able to do crossplay with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. But at the very least, if they can't do cross-generational support, at least make it so those in the same generation can crossplay with each other. That would at least be nice. but it would also be really cool to see anyone playing with anyone else. So yeah, that's my wish list for Black Ops Cold War Zombies. If you agree or disagree, leave a like, and tell me what you think in the comments below, if you're hyped, and when you think they'll reveal it. Hopefully it'll be soon, but anyways, that's it. Peace!